morning Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Jamaica Prime Minister Andrew Holness appeals for citizens to support. He's appealing for their support for an extension of ZOZO. That's our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Monday, April 30th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Nicole Best. Good evening. Holness called on citizens to put pressure on the main opposition People's National Party, the PNP, for them to support the government's request for a further extension of the state of public emergency. He made the call over the weekend, hours after police fatally shot the country's most wanted fugitive, Nico Samuels. This after the PNP signaled its intention not to support a further extension of the state of public emergency in St. James when the matter comes up for debate in the Parliament on Wednesday, unless there was overwhelming reason presented for the consideration of the public. Holness said he wanted the public to use all means possible to force the opposition to back the government's request for yet another extension.
You'll have organized criminals who feel that the government doesn't have the stick-to-itiveness to stay with the strategies put in to fight crime, that eventually we will call it off and then they will have free rein once again. I've made it clear that this government will not give up its strategic intent. We fell into that trap in 2010 when we were not able to get the support of the opposition to extend the state of emergency, which was called then. The support that really matters is your support. And therefore, I urge you to use your voice, use your social media, use letters to the editor, telephone calls to those you know, to ensure that political pressure is brought to bear on the opposition to support your fight against crime.
In January, the House of Representatives approved the extension of the state of public emergency in St. James until May 2, and last month extended the measure in St. Catherine North Police until July 3. Several Caribbean countries have been named in a new report by the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, as havens for human trafficking and other crimes. The report, which was issued on Monday, lists Barbados, Belize, Brazil, Jamaica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Venezuela among Caribbean and Latin American countries where 350 people were discovered as being possible victims of sexual exploitation and forced labor. 22 arrests were made during a major crackdown on human trafficking in 13 countries this month. The report said men, women and children were discovered working in nightclubs, farms, mines, factories and open-air markets, having been lured across borders by traffickers targeting desperate and vulnerable people with promises of a better life. According to Interpol, in Guyana, young women were found selling sex next to remote gold mines from which they could not escape. And in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the passports of a number of Asians found working at a factory were taken away from them. Coordinator for Interpol's Trafficking in Human Beings Unit, Kem Kolko, said many of the victims do not self-identify as victims.
Traffickers do take advantage of their vulnerability, and they manipulate them, and they make them believe that this is the best chance for them. And the second thing, that they make them believe that they will be free soon after they paid their debt to these people. In many cases, these traffickers, they're selling this victim to another traffickers or to another organized criminal group to be exploited. So this is starting from beginning again, because the second organized criminal group says that, okay, I paid for you this amount, so you have to work for me, let's say 6 months. And she agrees again, she or he, and then at the end of this period, they are being sold again.
Barbados' Culture Minister Stephen Lashley says his Democratic Labour Party remains confident that voters will put the interest of the country first in the May 24th general elections. Speaking to CMC News on the sidelines of the Reggae Festival on Sunday, Lashley said the party, which has been in office for 2 consecutive terms, has a strong record to defend.
We remain very confident, but we're not arrogant with that confidence. We know that there have been difficult times. Our intention is to go out there and to explain every day to Barbadians why we have made certain decisions. The fact that, of course, having to make those decisions, we did it in the need to protect our economy, to protect our social fabric. And we have not been engaging in the politics of mirrors. We have been engaging in the politics of explanation. We are yet to hear from the Barbados Labour Party what they are going to do in concrete terms. They have made a number of promises that we know is unsustainable. In fact, some of the promises that they have made are the very reasons why in 2008 we inherited an economy that was structurally weak.
Lashley says for decades the country has slavishly depended on tourism and the international financial services sector, which are both very vulnerable. He says the time has come for dialogue on the roles of government and the private sector for the future development of Barbados.
The role of government versus the role of the private sector need to be looked at very firmly. And I think in this election campaign, we are going to put some of those issues to the country. We are going to talk about our services, whether it's our transportation services, our healthcare services. We literally had to rescue our healthcare services and the QAH from being abandoned. We had to look at our infrastructural issues. And I believe that, the discussion about our roads is something we have to have a conversation with.
The May 24th election comes 6 weeks after the automatic dissolution of the parliament, the first in the history of Barbados. Lashley also called for greater promotion of such festivals as Barbados seeks to expand its cultural industry. And leader of the opposition of Barbados Labour Party, Mia Motley, was also at the Reggae Festival on the weekend. And in the company of soca artist Peter Ram, Motley told reporters if her party is elected to office, it will seek to facilitate business for festival promoters and also encourage activities that will bring visitors to the shores year-round.
We are committed to having a 52-week calendar of events that runs from music to sports to conferences, because there must be reasons other than sun, sea and sand for people to come to Barbados every week of the year. We also want to be able to promote education and health tourism. A student is a 9-month tourist. So and a person who's coming for health reasons or who's coming as a senior citizen to be able to stay here, they're adding value. We need jobs, and they then need to eat food. The people who are transporting the food get business. So it's a whole cyclical effect. So, when you see me blessing up, yes, Ram and them make us feel good. But in addition to make us feel good, they cause a lot of people to keep working in this country.
Motley says the campaign over the next 3 weeks will be intense, and her focus will be on the issues affecting the country, not about politics of abuse.
Because it's the issues that putting food on people's table, it's the issues that allowing people to get jobs, it's the issues that are going to save our dollar, it's the issues going to get the storage system working. It got to be about the issues this time round.
Over in Dominica, Lennox Linton has been re-elected unopposed as the leader of the main opposition United Workers' Party, and he's calling on his supporters to vote for change in the next election. Linton succeeded former Prime Minister Edison James as UWP leader in 2013. The following year, the party won 6 of the 21 seats in the general election. He said there is need to change the ruling Dominica Labour Party of Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt to ensure that Dominicans at home will not have to work for less than $1,000 a month.
Let's give change a try so that our senior citizens can enjoy their twilight years in comfort, peace, and safety. Let's give change a try for the thousands of professionals, nurses, doctors, teachers, lawyers, police officers, and other public officers who simply want to do their jobs for reasonable pay in a life-supporting environment free from political interference, harassment, and intimidation. Let's give change a try for a lower cost of living and a higher quality of life.
Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, a Vincentian pastor and his family jailed for 4 years. We'll tell you why when we return.
Watching on May 12th as the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence is broadcast live from the Pegasus Hotel in Jamaica. Join us from 7:30 p.m. Eastern Caribbean Time as Kai Miller of Jamaica, Noel and Siobhan Joseph of Trinidad and Tobago, Andrew Boyle of Guyana, and Adesh Ramsubag of Trinidad and Tobago receive $500,000 TT, a medal and citation for their work in the arts, sciences, public and civic contributions, and entrepreneurship.
The Career Development Institute's Caribbean Rising Stars in Beauty competition determines the best and most talented in hair, makeup, nails, or barbering. Win a scholarship and prizes worth more than $5,000. Build your clientele and expand your business. Upload 4 photographs of your best work to our email address. Watch the public vote on our Facebook page. Join the winners at the prestigious Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center for a live finals competition. Email careerdevelopment.institute@yahoo.com. The Career Development Institute, bringing the best in regional beauty together.
In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a pastor, his wife and daughter were sentenced to 4 years in prison after they were found guilty of pouring hot liquid on a man following what they described as a spiritual warfare 2 years ago. A magistrate on Monday imposed the sentence on Nigel Morgan, his wife Althea, and their 23-year-old daughter Crystal following the assault on Cuthbert Mafia Victory. The incident left Victory with burns to his back, shoulders, chest and face. Senior prosecutor Adolphus Del Plessis had argued that the trio had planned the assault on Victory on April 9, 2016. A video of the incident, which was widely circulated on social media, showed the older Morgans holding Victory while their daughter pours on him what was later revealed to be a hot liquid. The video was not tendered as evidence, reportedly because police did not secure a deposition from the person who did the recording. In her defense, Crystal Morgan told the court that she was feeling ill and was about to make a cup of tea when she heard noises that suggested that her parents were under attack. In their defense, the older Morgans presented themselves as having been under attack by Victory, who had gone to visit a friend who was the Morgans' neighbor. However, they admitted in court that they had attempted to use olive oil on the man while praying for him, even though he had not requested any spiritual help. But the state's main witness, Clint Antwine, who was the Morgans' neighbor at the time of the incident, told the court that the pastor and his wife had been engaged in an exchange of words with Victory. He said during the fracas, Morgan placed his hand on the bottle when they placed it above Victory's forehead. The witness said Victory swung his hands and Miss Morgan held on to him and they began fighting. Antwine told the court that the trio continued fighting before Victory was subdued by the Morgans, and the daughter then poured the contents of a black and silver kettle on him. Just a month before the start of this year's hurricane season, one regional prime minister is raising concerns the region is not prepared. Caribbean countries are especially worried ahead of the June 1 to November 30 season, following the widespread devastation caused in several countries last year. St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alan Chassanet told a recently concluded ECLAC forum, despite last year's experience, the region is not ready.
Now 30 days away from the hurricane season. And I told you, it knows no prejudice. It holds nothing back. So a year has gone by, and we've asked ourselves that simple question. Are we more prepared today than we were last year at this time for the hurricane season? I think we all know what the answer to that question is. We're prepared in our minds, but we're certainly not prepared physically for this hurricane season.
Meanwhile, Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Timothy Entwine, told a panel discussion that Caribbean countries are looking to set up a growth and resilience fund as one measure to cope with natural disasters.
The consequence of the hurricanes last year, we are exploring a growth and resilience fund where we're hoping that with country investment as well as potentially climate funds, attracting climate funds, we could see the countries really invest in what the Caribbean is calling its ambition to become the first climate resilient region in the world. That requires resources, a lot of resources. And that Growth and Resilience Fund is part of the discussion about how we might achieve that.
Trinidad and Tobago's opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar is accusing Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley of attempting to incite a holy war in the country. Speaking at her party's interfaith ceremony this weekend, Persad-Bissessar said it seems government is trying to attack the religious bodies. She added that this is a direct infringement on the human rights section of the Constitution, which states that every citizen has the freedom of worship and conscience.
First, as I say, during the carnival, they raided the mosques, the masjids. They want to demolish a Hindu temple. And now in Rodney's area, in Aparima, Church of God, they want to demolish and destroy that. Government has declared holy war upon us. But it is really unholy war that they've declared on the citizens of.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, West Indies captain Jason Holder stresses the importance of a strong start to next year's World Cup in England.
Watching on May 12th as the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence is broadcast live from the Pegasus Hotel in Jamaica. Join us from 7:30 p.m. Eastern Caribbean Time as Kai Miller of Jamaica, Noel and Siobhan Joseph of Trinidad and Tobago, Andrew Boyle of Guyana, and Adesh Ramsubag of Trinidad and Tobago receive $500,000 TT, a medal and citation for their work in the arts, sciences, public and civic contributions, and entrepreneurship.
Follow your heart to the 22nd Annual St. Kitts Music Festival from June 27 to July 1st, 2018, featuring Kester Band, Singer Logi, Small Axe Band, Nyla Blackman, and Betty Watt. Also, Patti LaBelle, Dijon, New Vibes International, Rhythm of the Beat, and Wayne Wonder. Spice, August Alsina, Aishona, Messiah, Dasha, Shaka Dimas, and Bias, and Miss Lauren Hill. Save the date and book now for the 22nd Annual St. Kitts Music Festival, an experience like no other.
Festival again, festival again, festival again, festival again, festival again. The Caribbean's greatest summer line. Yeah, it's country around the time. 44 years we here. I know you love it here. Troops and festivities. We love the Caribbean. The all night, no time for sleep. Emancipate with we. Black food, folklore. Come
West Indies captain Jason Holder has stressed the importance of a strong start to next year's World Cup in England, especially with the change of format in the competition. For the first time since the 1992 edition, all 10 teams will play each other in the preliminary round, with the top 4 qualifying for the all-important semi-finals. However, West Indies have difficult opening fixtures and beginning their campaign against Pakistan on May 31 in Nottingham before taking on reigning world champions Australia at the same venue on June 6. Holder says preparation at this point is key for the side.
I think the format is interesting. It's, I guess, one that we've got to adjust to and just find a win early up in the competition. I think it's always important to start the competition with a win, and I think once you start with a win, it eases the pressure off going into the end of the tournament. So we're going to focus primarily at starting well. I think preparation is obviously key, and getting into the tournament and having ourselves at peak performance by the time we start out the first few encounters. I think once we get past those, we can head deeper and deeper into the tournament.
Holder said he was aware the Windies were underdogs for the event, but was comfortable with that label.
No, our expectation is just to be consistent. Funny enough, we went into the World Cup qualifiers being the favourites. I know we've qualified for the 2019 World Cup. I guess we're a bit of underdogs at this present time. So for us, it's just keeping our underdog tag and going in to upset some of the bigger teams.
Over to athletics now. A former athletics administration boss is cautioning authorities in Jamaica not to rush plans for the country to host a series of international meets. The warning from the head of Jamaica's bidding committee, Mike Fennell, in the wake of plans by government to push through with bids to host major events. The idea had sparked a debate among members of the athletic fraternity. In this report from TVJ's Spencer Darlington, Jamaica's sports minister is optimistic that the island can host international events in the near future.
Earlier this month, Sports Minister Olivia Babsy-Grange announced that Jamaica was open for business and would be bidding to stage major international sporting events as part of the country's cultural and sports economic development strategy. To aid this process, an international bidding committee has been set up to identify and recommend events that could be hosted by Jamaica. Renowned sports administrator Mike Fennell has been made chairman of the newly formed committee.
I would like to just issue a warning. To bid and be successful in getting these events takes a lot of initial planning and advance information. It's years ahead. For instance, the Commonwealth Games are awarded 6 years out. And usually your planning cycle is 8 to 10 years, where you consider how you're going to do it, how you're going to finance it, and how you're going to provide the necessary financial guarantees that are required in being successful with your bid for hosting these events.
One of the main prerequisites to hosting a major event is the availability of venues and facilities which meet international standards. In this regard, Minister Grange says the National Stadium and Stadium East will get priority.
We're ensuring that our infrastructure is up to world standard, and not just for visiting teams, not just for people who want to come and trade, but also for our own athletes. So, for example, Stadium East, in this first quarter, we will be putting in a new track. And in order to ensure that we continue to have the IAAF certification, we have to have a good training track.
The minister remains optimistic that Jamaica can host a major international event in the short to medium term. Minister, in terms of Jamaica hosting an international event, what sort of time frame have you put on that? How soon do we want to host a global event?
2 years. We're working on that. It's very ambitious, but we're working towards that.
The next IAAF World Under-20 Championship after this year will be held in 2020, while the next staging of the World Relays is set for 2021. Jamaica Athletics Administrative Association President Dr. Warren Blake believes it would be more practical for Jamaica to go after the next World Relays in 3 years' time.
Oregon is going to be hosting the World Championships in 2021, I think, yeah. And, the World Relays around that time would just be quite fitting. So we could go for the World Relays, and then the following year go for the World Juniors, and then the next year go for the World Relays, so that it would pay back the investment in the stadium and in track and field.
RJR Gleaner Communications Group track and field analyst Dwayne Extall also agrees that the next World Relays would be more feasible for Jamaica.
Right now, we're best set to host the World Relays 2021. I think it's a great test rehearsal for us for the 2022 World Juniors. And I think, I look back at the World Relays at the Thomas Robinson Stadium, 15,000 at capacity, can go to 25. We have the ability right now to go 35,000. And Jamaica's track and field crazy. You look at the Gibson Relays, a one-day sprint relay event. We have an event like the World Relays, which is Friday and Saturday. We can generate a lot of revenue, a lot of income, can come from that.
Last time Jamaica hosted a major international track and field event was the 2002 IAAF World Junior Championships, now known as the World Under-20 Championships.
And in football, goals on either side of halftime gave Jamaica's Reggae Boys a revenge 2-0 win over 10-man Antigua and Barbuda at the Vivian Richards Cricket Stadium on Sunday. Peter Lee Vassell's 43rd minute strike gave the visitors a 1-0 lead at the break, and Fabian Reid added a second in the 57th to avenge for the heartbreaking 1-1 draw between the two teams in Kingston last month. Reid, who had missed the sitter minutes earlier, found the target on the second time of asking when he produced a clinical finish with a delicate chip. Antigua were not afforded the luxury of a comeback, however, as Jamaica doubled their lead 12 minutes after the resumption. The victory also ensured a successful two-game road trip for Jamaica, who trounced St. Kitts and Nevis 3-1 last Thursday in Bastille. And in news of horse racing, Barbadian jockey Patrick Husbands rode a double on Sunday's 11-race card as he kept up his bright start to the newly minted Woodbine season. The 44-year-old paired with outsider Victorian Lass to snatch a narrow win in race 5 before following up immediately with victory in race 6 aboard 2-1 Choice Conquest Swagman. The 7-time champion opened his account in a 5.5 furlong sprint when he edged the 3-year-old and Upward Fillies and Mares by a head. Woodbine track announcer Robert Geller has the call.
Front, Princess Macy by 3/4, Orphan Queen second. Megalyn Candy joining in on the outside and takes off. And under attack here, Princess Macy. On the outside goes Megalyn Candy to almost level. In third, Orphan Queen. Under lock and key is fourth. A Fleet Doll's got forward on the outside. Layla's Princess the centre. Victorian Lass starting a nice run. Turning in front, and Princess Macy leads. In second placing is Megalyn Candy. Under lock and key the centre. On the outside, a Fleet Doll trying to run home Congeniality at the back. Well out in front of Princess Macy and Megalyn Candy. Under lock and key the centre. Megalyn Candy's gone to the front, under lock and key, finishing on well near the centre, and down the outside, Victorian Lass, Patrick Husbands, Victorian Lass, out wide coming, it's under lock and key, and Victorian Lass in the photo from under lock and key, back third is Megalyn Candy.
And that's the sport. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Follow your heart to the 22nd Annual St. Kitts Music Festival from June 27 to July 1st, 2018. Featuring Kester Band, Singer Logi, Small Axe Band, Nyla Blackman, and Betty Wack. Also, Patti LaBelle, Dijon, New Vibes International, Rhythm of the Beat, and Wayne Wonder. August Alfina, Aishona, Byron Messiah, Dasha, Shaka Dimas and the Flyers, and Miss Lauren Hill. Save the date and book now for the 22nd Annual St. Kitts Music Festival, an experience like no other.
Be watching on May 12th as the Anthony N. Sabga Caribbean Awards for Excellence is broadcast live from the Pegasus Hotel in Jamaica. Join us from 7:30 p.m. Eastern Caribbean Time as Kai Miller of Jamaica, Noel and Siobhan Joseph of Trinidad and Tobago, Andrew Boyle of Guyana, and Adesh Ramsubag of Trinidad and Tobago receive $500,000 TT, a medal and citation for their work in the arts, sciences, public and civic contributions, and entrepreneurship.
The Career Development Institute's Caribbean Rising Stars in Beauty competition determines the best and most talented in hair, makeup, nails, or barbering. Win a scholarship and prizes worth more than $5,000. Build your clientele and expand your business. Upload 4 photographs of your best work to our email address. Watch the public vote on our Facebook page. Join the winners at the prestigious Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center for a live finals competition. Email careerdevelopment.institute@yahoo.com. The Career Development Institute, bringing the best in regional beauty together.
In the major development of this day, Jamaica Prime Minister Andrew Holness calls on citizens to pressure the opposition to support government's request for a further extension of the state of public emergency. That's Caribbean Newsline. Do have yourselves a very good night. We'll be back here on Wednesday.